My stepdad looked me in the eye at my high school graduation and said, "You know you're not really part of this family, right?" His biological kids got new cars. I got a card with $20 in it. But Mom had been watching. And what she did next destroyed him. This is the story of how 15 years of documented favoritism, calculated exclusion, and emotional abuse came crashing down in a single afternoon. Because my mother had been building a case the entire time. And when she finally acted, there was nothing he could do to stop it. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, if you've watched someone treat their biological kids like royalty while you got the scraps, this story is for you. Stay with me. My name is Jessica. I'm 32 now, but this story begins when I was 7 years old. That's when my mom married David. My biological father had passed away from cancer 2 years earlier, and Mom thought she was giving me a new chance at a complete family. David seemed perfect at first. Successful accountant. Charming. Patient with me during the early months. But David had 2 kids from his first marriage. Tyler, who was 9, and Madison, who was 8. They lived with us full-time after their mother moved overseas for work. The shift was subtle at first. Small things I noticed but couldn't quite articulate as a 7-year-old child. Tyler got the bigger bedroom. Madison got the new laptop for school. When I asked for help with homework, David would say he was busy, but I'd hear him patiently explaining math concepts to Tyler 20 minutes later through the wall. Family photos hung in the hallway. I counted them once when I was 10. 43 pictures total. I appeared in exactly 8 of them. Tyler and Madison were in 39. My mom worked long hours as a nurse, often night shifts at the hospital. David worked from home. He controlled the household. The routines. The rules. The distribution of attention and resources. I remember the first time I understood something was fundamentally wrong. I was 11 years old. It was my 11th birthday. Mom had worked a double shift but came home with a chocolate cake she'd picked up from the bakery I loved. She was exhausted but smiling. We were going to celebrate together when she woke up. I went to school excited. When I came home, the cake was gone. David was in the kitchen. Madison was eating the last slice. "Oh," he said when he saw my face. I didn't realize that was for something specific. The kids were hungry after school. Mom cried when she found out. She apologized to me. She confronted David. He said it was an honest mistake. She believed him. But I had seen Madison's expression when I walked in. It wasn't surprise. It was satisfaction. The pattern accelerated through middle school. Christmas gifts were the most obvious disparity. Tyler and Madison would each get 6 or 7 presents. New phones. Gaming consoles. Expensive clothes. I'd get 2 or 3 items, always practical. Socks. School supplies. A coat from the clearance rack. David's explanation was always the same. We have to be responsible with money. Jessica understands. But Mom paid half of all household expenses. Her nursing salary wasn't small. The money was there. It just wasn't being spent on me. By the time I was 14, I had learned to expect nothing. My step-siblings got to go to summer camps. I stayed home. They got music lessons, sports equipment, tutoring. I got the public library. Tyler got a car for his 16th birthday. A used Honda, but still. When my 16th birthday came, I got a cake. Just a cake. I'd stopped expecting more by then. But Mom looked crushed. She pulled David aside that night. I heard them arguing behind the closed bedroom door. His voice was calm, measured. Hers was breaking. "She's my daughter," Mom said. "And I'm doing my best," David replied. "But I have to think about my biological kids first. That's just natural. You do the same." Natural. That word haunted me. High school was where the emotional abuse became undeniable. I was a good student. Straight A's honor roll, involved in theater and debate team. I worked hard because I knew college was my only escape route. When I was 17, I got accepted to 3 universities. One of them offered me a partial scholarship. I was ecstatic. Mom was proud. He hugged me. She cried happy tears. David said, "Well, you'll need to figure out how to pay for the rest. We can't help you." The same month, he co-signed a car loan for Madison, who was 19 and had mediocre grades. $10,000. Mom confronted him. He said Madison needed reliable transportation. I could take the bus. But here's what I didn't know. What I wouldn't discover until years later. My mother had been documenting everything. The breaking point came at my college graduation. I'd done it. Worked 2 part-time jobs, taken out loans, applied for every scholarship I could find. I graduated with a degree in communications. Top 15% of my class. Mom drove 6 hours to be there. David came too, along with Tyler and Madison. After the ceremony, we went to dinner. A nice restaurant. Mom's treat. David spent the entire meal talking about Tyler's new job at his accounting firm. About Madison's upcoming wedding, which was going to cost them $30,000. He didn't ask me a single question about my future plans. And then, as we were leaving, he pulled me aside in the parking lot. "You know," he said quietly so Mom wouldn't hear, "you're not really part of this family. You never were. I tried, but you're not mine. I did my duty by letting you live in my house. Don't expect anything more." I stood there, frozen. He walked away. I didn't tell Mom that night. I couldn't find the words. But I didn't need to. Because she had been building her case for 15 years. And 3 months later, everything would detonate. Here's what I didn't know. My mother is a nurse. She's trained to observe, to document, to notice patterns. And she had been keeping records since I was 7 years old. Every Christmas, every birthday, every unequal treatment. She had written it down. She had saved receipts, gift records, photos with timestamps. She had copies of bank statements showing exactly how much David spent on Tyler and Madison versus how much he spent on me. She had recorded conversations. In our state, one-party consent was legal for recordings. She had documented years of his comments, his dismissals, his favoritism. She had consulted with a lawyer 2 years earlier. Not a divorce lawyer yet. Just a family law attorney who specialized in blended family disputes. The lawyer told her something crucial. If she could prove systematic financial and emotional discrimination against me, she could make a case that David had violated his obligation to treat all children in the household equitably, especially since he had agreed to act as my parent when he married her. More importantly, she could argue that her own financial contributions to the household had been misappropriated. She had been paying half of all bills, including the mortgage, under the assumption that all 3 children would be treated fairly. David had breached that implicit agreement. Mom spent 2 years gathering everything she needed. Bank records, tax returns, documentation of every instance of disparate treatment. She waited until Tyler and Madison were both adults, both out of the house. She didn't want to disrupt their lives, even though they had been complicit in the favoritism. And then 3 months after my graduation, she filed for divorce. David thought it would be a simple divorce. He had consulted with his own lawyer. He assumed they'd split assets 50-50 and he'd keep the house since it was in his name. What he didn't expect was my mother's documentation. The divorce proceedings turned into a financial reckoning. Mom's lawyer presented 15 years of evidence. Every disparate gift, every unequal treatment, every recorded comment where David admitted he treated his biological kids differently. The judge was not amused. Here's what the court found. First, David had systematically discriminated against me, despite agreeing to act as my parent when he married my mother. Second, my mother's financial contributions to the household, approximately $450,000 over 15 years, had been used disproportionately to benefit Tyler and Madison. Third, David's comments and behavior constituted emotional abuse and created a hostile home environment. The judge ordered a full accounting. David had spent approximately $120,000 on Tyler and Madison beyond basic living expenses. Cars, college funds, wedding costs, travel, gifts. He had spent approximately $12,000 on me. The disparity was staggering. The judge ruled that my mother was entitled to reimbursement for the financial discrimination. Not the full difference but a significant portion. David was ordered to pay my mother $180,000. That covered half of the discrepancy plus compensation for emotional distress. Additionally, the house, which David assumed he'd keep, was found to be marital property since Mom had contributed to the mortgage for 15 years. It was sold. After the sale and division of assets, Mom walked away with enough to buy her own home outright. Small but hers. David got what was left after paying the settlement, which wasn't much. But the real destruction came from Tyler and Madison. When they found out about the court's findings, they were furious. Not at David, Mom. They accused her of being vindictive, of destroying their father over petty things. Mom sent them copies of the documentation. Every receipt. Every instance of favoritism they had personally benefited from. She included a letter that said simply, "I loved you both as my own. Your father made sure Jessica never received the same. This is the consequence." Tyler sent a response. One sentence, "We never asked for any of this." Mom replied, "No. But you accepted it anyway." They haven't spoken to her since. The final blow came at the property sale. David showed up with his girlfriend. He'd been seeing her for months, apparently. Started the relationship before the divorce was even final. Mom didn't react. She signed the papers. He took her check. As they were leaving, David tried to approach her. To say something. Maybe to justify himself. She looked at him and said, "You spent 15 years making my daughter feel worthless. I spent 15 years documenting it. I hope it was worth $180,000. He had no response. Today, 3 years later, Mom lives in a small house 40 minutes from me. It's cozy. It's hers. There's no mortgage. I visit every Sunday. We cook together. We talk about everything. She used part of the settlement money to help me pay off my student loans. Not all of them, but enough that I could breathe." David lives in a rental apartment. He tried to reconcile with Tyler and Madison after the divorce, but the relationship is strained. They blame him for the financial loss, for the embarrassment of having the family dynamics exposed in court. His reputation in the community suffered. Word got around. The accountant who couldn't balance his own moral ledger. Tyler reached out to me once. An email. He said he was sorry. That he didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't respond. Madison sent a wedding invitation. I sent it back with a note. I wasn't really part of the family, remember? She didn't contact me again. Mom says she doesn't regret any of it. The only thing she regrets is not acting sooner. "I should have protected you better," she told me once. "You did," I said. "You just took your time doing it." Here's what I learned from this experience. Documentation is power. My mother's 15 years of records turned an emotional family dispute into a legal victory. If you're in a situation where you're being treated unfairly, write it down. Save receipts. Take photos. Record conversations where legal. Evidence is everything. Financial abuse is real abuse. David's favoritism wasn't just emotional. It was financial. He used shared resources to benefit his biological children while excluding me. That's a form of abuse that courts can and will address. Waiting for the right moment matters. Mom didn't act impulsively. She waited until Tyler and Madison were adults, until she had a complete case, until the timing was strategic. Patience can be its own form of power. Blended families require equity. When you marry someone with children, you're agreeing to treat all children fairly. David failed that obligation. If you're in a blended family, have explicit conversations about equity. Put agreements in writing if necessary. Sometimes the best revenge is justice. My mother didn't set out to destroy David. She set out to get fair compensation for years of discrimination. The court agreed with her. That's not revenge. That's accountability. To recap, 15 years of systematic favoritism and emotional abuse. Mother documented everything while waiting for the right moment. Divorce proceedings exposed $108,000 disparity in spending. Court ordered $180,000 settlement. Step-siblings cut contact after documentation proved their complicity. Stepfather's reputation destroyed in community. Mother and I rebuilt relationship on foundation of truth and justice. The lesson: you can't hide financial discrimination forever. Eventually the receipts catch up with you. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt like the forgotten child, I hope you found some validation here. You deserved better. And sometimes justice does come. Thank you for listening.